a little behind today. Thank you so much. So welcome, everybody. I want to first introduce our new members and welcome them. We have Kelly Washburn with us. We have Elise, who's last name
Foxbaum.
Hello, Elise. And Cindy Espinosa. Is she here? Because I saw an email earlier. Okay, that she might not be joining. But Cindy Espinosa is our third new member. So we're really excited to have new members in youth this year. And we're excited to have youth members that have been in our community for a long time already working with our youth and really looking forward to their participation and their points of view as we go into this. We see this as our new year because everything's changing hands in August. So it's a really exciting time. So welcome, everybody. And we look forward to working together. I then want to thank Stacy. Sorry. Oh, I thought somebody. I want to thank Stacy for bringing this item to us today regarding city planning. I was able to have an email exchange with her about how we have struggled mightily with getting the city to plan logically when it comes to school seats and other, things that are youth related, such as recreation spaces, public safety measures. We have, at least for the last 18 years that I've been here, have been chasing these things after the fact. When we had the severe overcrowding, just to catch everybody up on this before we open the discussion, when we had our severe overcrowding downtown post 9/11, the DOE and the SCA did not think we were going to have the amount of kids coming that we did. I don't know who they thought the 33,000 apartments were going to be full of, especially considering most of them were 2 and 3 bedrooms. But at that time, Eric Greenleaf, for those of you who don't know him, he was a professor still is a professor at Stern School of Business. Scott Stringer, Elise's husband, held an overcrowded meeting, an SOS meeting at IS 89. And that really started that whole thing going, where we waved this flag to the SCA and the DOE that you haven't done any planning down here. And so that began 10 years of chasing infrastructure. And we were able to get the 4 new schools built. It was like a throwdown, though. Very, very difficult. They didn't want to build them. PS 276 was supposed to be a women's museum that we were able to get to be a school. Peck Slip was a post office that they wanted to sell to a condominium developer. Spruce Street School, the Gary Tower, they were not interested at all in having a school in the base of that building. And what's our last one? My gosh, Trish. Spruce, yes, Spruce is Gary, 276, Peck Slip, PS 150, which was in the old Sims department store, which we had put in front of them 3 times before, and they had turned it down every time because of how dangerous the traffic situation is outside that school. So as we go into this conversation, I just wanted to loop everybody into that in case anybody didn't know, especially with our new members. And let them know that many resolutions followed. We put a lot of pressure on them, in addition to the school seats. We had them building schools and things that, obviously weren't meant to be schools. And they were doing it without any consideration or very little consideration. I shouldn't say any, very little consideration about things like, where do they go when there's a fire drill? Is there enough recreation space that it rains? And these schools don't have full gymnasiums that you have somewhere for them to recreate. What you plan. And we got a lot of shoulder shrugging. And then we chased things like the closed street in front of Peck Slip, which we had to get after the fact. we had to remove all these dangerous ornamental things that the developer put on the face of the building. We don't know why they were points, like steel points that were injuring people. We had, even LMC went into an office building with old passenger elevators that had never been renovated. They were breaking down and opening in the middle of floors. There were so many things that happened as a result of a lack of poor planning. And we are now on our last school, we're fighting for PS 150 now. And we're back to, that situation is incredibly dire. For those of you who don't know, it is positioned at the intersection of Edgar Street and Trinity Place. And Trinity Place has a one-way street with two lanes of traffic going northbound. And it basically brings all the buses into the city. And so in the morning at drop-off hour, you have no lines of sight because you have wall-to-wall buses and you have kids, largely of which come from the Northeast, trying to cross Trinity Place and get into the school. So we had solved this problem back in 2016 with a task force, and this is the last thing I'll say as we move into this, but it's important to say. In 2016, when the resolutions weren't working, we called an interagency meeting with the DOE, the SCA, NYPD School Safety, NYPD. Who else was there? Department of Transportation. That was everybody. And we had this meeting where we said, thank you for the school and what's your plan? Because this is super dicey. And we were able to make recommendations. For instance, we were able to make the recommendations that the bus should stop on Edgar Street to the west of Trinity Place, that we should close the north lane of Edgar Street so the kids could walk across during drop-off. We, went over the whole plan. We decided that we needed to extend the southern sidewalk that was only 7 feet before the construction of the building. Luckily, we have that on our side. The mechanicals of the building's construction required them to extend it. So we were able to get a 7-foot sidewalk turned into a 12-foot sidewalk. So things were really working. We were getting a plan together because the courtyard, the admissions courtyard to 150 is on the southwest corner of the northwest corner of Edgar and Trinity. And so that's where the kids are received. So by having the bus come to Edgar, they were only walking across a closed street to then connect to the courtyard. Anybody coming from the west was walking down a very wide sidewalk and right into the courtyard. And then for those coming from the northeast, the plan was to have 2 crossing guards at the corner of Trinity and, help me out, Stacy, Exchange? Rector.
And Exchange.
Yeah, and Exchange.
Yeah.
They come via those 2 streets. So lo and behold, the school opens, the southern sidewalk hasn't been built yet. It's under construction and it's completely closed off by a chain link fence. The bus is stopping at Trinity Place and Rector on the east side of the street. It doesn't stop traffic because it can't. So they're having to get out of the bus, stand on the corner and wait for the light. I mean, this is a school that is pre-K 5, so that for every child that comes, there's at least one caretaker taking them. So we estimated at about 950 people making their way to the school. So since the school opened in 23, we have been chasing this through a series of resolutions. And we have not been effective. And so I have called on the office and I'm going to be helping them to see if we can recreate this interagency meeting that was so successful at that time. Because what happens is the schools take so long to get built that the average is 6 years. And everything is gone. All those people that were at the meeting are gone. There's no historical memory. They just forgot about it. And then whoever's there now is trying to just scramble. So that brings us to today. And Stacy knew that I was working on getting this meeting, but she also has been really thinking ahead on several issues for us, which we really appreciate. And it just is an opportunity for us to maybe get, especially since we're doing district needs tonight, for us to get specific about, maybe even weave it into the district needs conversation. And really talk about what, really prepare for this meeting, I think also is what I'd like to think of this as. And if we can't get it to happen, or if we don't have a good result, it will help inform yet another resolution. So with that, I first want to ask if anybody has any questions, because I went through that pretty quick. Is anybody lost anywhere along the line? No? Is anything? Let's see. Okay. All right. So I thought we'd just open up discussion. And it could mean that questions come out as we start talking about this. But what I'll say just to launch it is what the SCA will tell you they do, because I think that is kind of important as a jumping off place so that we can address that in our discussion and potential resolution. But they go by what's called a seeker standard, which is they take, this random number that they come up with based on building data. And the problem with the seeker standard down here is that there's a huge delay. There's a delay in the way that they look at the building. It's about 4 years, the delay. And then when they get the data, they then put it into the capital plan. And the capital plan looks 5 years into the future. And so their goal is to have it done in 5 years. So if you will, they're going into that 9 years behind, right? So in some cases, if it's been brewing for a while, like our problem was. So it might be of interest, something I left out that is a fun fact, is that not one of our schools in Lower Manhattan was in the capital plan because we didn't have time. And so I think our first order of business, and something we haven't said before, is we call upon the SCA to renovate the capital plan. And it works fine when you're talking about, and I think it was designed fairly to the SCA. It was designed for people moving around the city, like basic migration patterns, because they happen over a longer period of time. Like if you talk about, oh, there used to be a lot of kids in Tribeca and there aren't as many anymore. Now there's brand new young kids again. But there was a period of time where it does this, right? Where Andrew and my kids are now 22. And I noticed that right after our kids got into high school, there was a little bit of a dip. Yeah. And clearly it happened because of the pandemic, but it's just natural cycles that happen. People move out, things change. New different kinds of schools open that maybe people want to look into in different places. Jobs change, things like that. So what I'll say is I think that could be a great place to start in terms of separating those two things and saying the seeker standard really should not be used in cases of intentional development, like you had post 9/11 down here, where the city gave incentives to people to move down. And within, 4 years, 72,000 people came. We had 285% growth in FIDI alone, which if it was a city would be the largest growing city in the United States. So I think that we could start with that as a request when this meeting comes or when this resolution is developed. But I kind of want to hear from everybody else now in terms of, especially, people that have kids in the system. I really need, this committee needs your help in bringing sort of your experience here to us in terms of what's happening right now. And where you see some potential points that we could be fighting for. You want to start us off, Stacey?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you hit on every point, and that's the reason that I had this idea. As a parent with young kids, I walk around and I see all of the new families, as you mentioned. I noticed the dip as well, and now there's more. And making sure that, are there enough seats? Like in doing this research, I realized the I believe it's the DOE or the SCA, they don't, a trigger isn't a study isn't triggered unless they think there's gonna be 100 K through 5 kids and 150 high school kids. Well, that's, you could build a building that would have 90 easily, any of the new buildings on Broadway, Water Street. And so but that's significant, especially when it's tied into one of the other points I think we should talk about later, just the class size. Like the school sizes down here are not changing, yet they're asking for less kids to be allowed in the school, but there's more buildings. I gave you the statistics, but there's like 2 million new square feet of converted office building that's coming up in the next year.
Yeah.
All of which is apartments, so, I mean, just agree with what you say and hearing that I'm seeing the same thing, and I think it's worth having something like this, not as a formal city-wide thing, but just something that land use could use when they're looking at projects. That's where this would come in.
Yeah, I like that idea of having like the cooperation between the community board committees on something like this, which we haven't done before, which could be super interesting to talk about.
At least maybe identify or have a record of some of those issues, like you had before.
One of the other things I'll mention before you continue, because I want you to, is that we did back then do a pre-K school questionnaire where at the time, we had 19 preschools below Canal. I now think we have like 25.
I'm sorry.
So we split up as a committee and we had everyone reach out to a few schools. And we had a questionnaire that we gave them asking parents, and not everybody was comfortable filling it out, which is fine, but it was good to get a general idea. And what we found is the ones that were headed to public school were especially happy to participate when we told them that it was a tool we used to make sure that there are school seats for everybody. And so we did have a good response from the public school parents. And it was in that way that we were able to put that data in front of the DOE. And I think maybe we could do that again with all the building that's happening again down here. And just see where we are with that, but go on, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. Like, I'm happy to answer questions, but I think the checklist is pretty self-explanatory. If you look through it, it's meant to be easy and it's meant to just sort of be a checklist and ask these questions, have land use ask these questions, or someone from Youth and Ed in meetings where we've identified beforehand projects that, may be of interest. Because there is an automatic 60-day period that is triggered. When CB1 has the right to, or I guess right's not the right word, but that during that 60-day period, they can ask questions. And so this would just be part of the questions that land use is asking, to formalize it.
Has everybody had a chance to look over this?
No.
Let's do that now for a minute.
I have. So I want to make sure I'm following the conversation. There's, in terms of what's been discussed, so there's the issue of safety at PS 150, which sounds like that's a standalone item. It may be embedded in here, but standalone item of a possible interagency meeting.
Well, I mean, the interagency meeting will be chasing this after the fact, but it's an opportunity to take the bigger picture to them,
Sure, yeah. Yep, I completely understand that. And then this fosters the idea of, as projects come before land use, having a checklist of items that drive consideration around infrastructure needs associated with these buildings, with these projects.
Yeah, it's specifically for, I mean, infrastructure, I think is a great way to classify all of these things. I think the biggest driver is schools, but,
The focus on schools, but
yeah, because that is kind of the biggest driver of infrastructure for that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think Tricia mentioned this, but like the under 18 population in our district grew 60% in the last 10 years. And then I mean, just the population growth alone has almost doubled in the last 10 years. And so like, are we appropriately accounting for these things? Because there aren't a lot of schools and it's not, people may choose to leave CB1 to go to school, but they shouldn't have to. I mean, that's my thinking as a parent. And at the rate that we're going, they will have to.
It could happen again.
Yeah.
You know, it happened then, and then it plateaued off. I've checked in with the schools pretty recently, and they all say that they're not over capacity,
Yeah.
but it doesn't count for what's coming. You know, I really have noticed a lot of babies.
So when they answer that question about overcapacity, does that, coming back to Stacy's point, does that factor in school, class sizes?
So yes, it does, like for us, we're pretty lucky with class size down here. This is a really testy subject because there is a mandate to reduce class sizes. At the same time, with per pupil funding, it's hard for them to financially function with that mandate. And so while we're trying to, one of the things I had taken to Kelly McGuire was, yes, this is a really important thing to do, but we have to also make sure that if we do that, that we're making sure that schools can stay whole. Because there's this little winky wink motivation to take more children because it makes for a more robust budget. And I think that some of the principals were kind of weird, you know, a little concerned about pushing for too smaller class sizes. They wanted some sort of, you know, control over that so that they could manage their budgets. And if they had to bring in an extra teacher or do what they needed to do. So right now they are being told they must do this. And so they are trying to navigate it. So long answer to your short question is, I think that we are pretty compliant in the elementary department. I do not think we are in the middle school and upper school department.
Yeah.
I know Millennium is not compliant.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with the high schools. I know there are, because a lot of the questions around class funding size, and you'll have to forgive me because I know enough to get by, but not all of the story, but the funding was decided in the middle of June. And schools were told, we will fund the same amount of what we funded for the prior year. Now the frustration comes, for example, that like kids move up a grade. So if you have 60 kids in one grade and 40 in the next grade, you now have to convert that class of 60 to 40 somehow. Basically you're going from 3 teachers to 2. So there are 2 schools that I know are affected by this specifically. Keeping all else current is 276 and Spruce Street have, from the DOE's website, they don't have the space to expand the classrooms that they need to meet the class size funding or the class size mandate. The other schools do, but that's keeping it at a smaller class size for the entire school. So is that possible with the population and the growth that we're expecting? That's a question I don't know. So too.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Does it?
Do we have any census or population data that's available to us to be able to get a better snapshot of like at least family size? Like I don't know, I can't remember the last time I filled out the census, but does it include children as well, or just the number of families?
It does. It's just what I'm looking for, the turnout, the percentage of people that answer it is so abysmally low that we could never get a good reading. What Eric did that was actually within 5% was so impressive. I mean, he did this in his spare time, I will tell you guys. He went to the Department of Health and got birth records.
Who did this?
Eric Greenleaf is his name. He was, there was an overcrowding task force that was developed back in 2008. And Scott Stringer was the one who kicked the whole thing off at that meeting at PS 89. And I met Eric there. My girls were coming into kindergarten that year. And he's like, this is going to be a disaster. They already can't handle the amount of kids at 230 coming into 234 because they told me you may be put on a wait list. So So I immediately heard about this meeting and I heard that Scott was he was waving the flag to the city saying, you need to do something about this situation down here. And I met Eric there. And Eric told me that Shelley Silver had just developed this overcrowding task force and that all the elected officials came to this meeting, along with all of our school principals. And that was developed in 2008. So once a month, and they did this, they agreed to it and they did it. Once a month, we would go to the assembly hearing room and we would meet, all of us, all the principals, a representative from every school, like a PTA member, all of our elected officials. We had our senator, we had our assembly person and our city council person. Occasionally, we'd have the borough president. I mean, there was getting a lot of attention, things were so bad. And we would hash things out at that meeting because the DOE did not want to build the schools. They didn't think we needed them. And so Eric, I still have the presentations. He did like 6 of them and he kept updating them. And he ran a PowerPoint presentation with data he did take the census data, which was less compelling. The birth data was very compelling. And he was able to track how many had been born 5 years previously and how many ended up in a kindergarten school seat. And it was about 52%. So 52%, and that data held 5 straight years. That's impressive. So he said, if we're looking at 52% of the kids that were born this year, in 5 years, we will need 500 additional school seats.
Oh, my goodness.
And they were like, no way. And they just kept saying it wasn't going to happen. And then it happened.
Yeah.
And it happened within 5% of his data. And so it was a combination, Desi, of birth data, building data, census, questionnaires. And there, I think, I can look it up and I should have actually thought to bring that, but I will bring it next meeting. And it was super impressive.
Yeah.
And finally, after about 6 months to a year of this madness, they agreed that they had gotten it wrong. They had their planning team that planned school seats was based in Bethesda, Maryland. It was a husband and wife team called the Greer Partnership. No one can explain it. They're no longer doing it. And I think, that was a learning moment for the DOE. They did admit they got it wrong. And then we had a huge scramble, but that's, I think, the data that we would be looking back to again if it served us so well,
I wonder how it would be affected by COVID when so many people left the area.
Well, I think since COVID, we've had enough time to sort of see some trends, and yeah. Andrew?
I'm wondering if either through a fellow or other resources, we can't maybe ask Eric just to walk someone through his methodology and see if they can recreate what he did as we're talking about these types of initiatives.
Mhm.
And just, by the way, I think this is a no-brainer. All I would put out there is, what teeth does this have? And the reason I say that, it was in one of those task force meetings where I asked the question, can someone just walk us through what type of city planning and coordination goes into the 10 buildings that are going up here? And everyone just looked down the line at each other and literally no one responded. Truly, no one responded. And I'd be surprised if that's changed in any way, shape, or form. Maybe it has, but I'd be surprised. So I think this is great, and I think we should absolutely pursue it. I think we need to have either an understanding or a conversation. What teeth will it? Do we say land use doesn't approve something if these conditions aren't at least responded to or addressed, or that's where this breaks down?
I think that's an idea. I mean, that's a resolution that could happen. As I see it, and I'm open to your feedback, everyone, as I see it, since we're pressing so hard for this meeting, I would love to try to get this meeting to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we can move to resolution. And we can not only look back on the fact that we requested this meeting for a year now and didn't get it, But we can then do that very thing, Andrew, and just say, you know, have that be that whereas all of these things that we've already lived. And say, you know, this is what we did there. We still seeing the same, you know, failed approach being applied here. And now it's time to take things up a notch, and now we're going to say this, and have that be, you know, the teeth of a resolution where, you know, we're demanding that if they aren't gonna come up, if they aren't gonna meet and they aren't gonna change their process, then we're gonna stop for a minute before approving any building.
So again, I fully support that. I will just share that for about a year, I voted against any land use residential project that didn't specifically address school seat.
Hmm.
And I was asked to stop
Interesting. Well,
so I don't know what the collective thinking of the board is around something like that.
right. Well, maybe they'll be more interested when they, again, I think historical memory, historical memory is fades quickly. You know?
Yes.
It's like the pain of childbirth. It's like, what was that? It's really, it was that bad. I mean, when I say bad, things were, I mean, Andrew can tell you, it was so bad. My daughters were in PS 234 is built for 5 kindergartens. They were one of 8 kindergartens. And they hadn't even finished, the rooms were still under construction across that walkway in that condominium that ended up having to give us the annex. They were still under construction. That's the building next to Manhattan U. I had to put the sinks on my credit card because they had no sinks in the art room. And so we had to get portable sinks for that school. I mean, I could go on, but I mean, we were traumatized. It was very, very difficult situation. And I think that we can take, and if it's at a full board meeting where you're getting that feedback, then I think we can take a trip down memory lane. I think when people hear what transpired and they're reminded, we can see that, especially if we find that the data, because I think your point would be really important, is to see if Eric would be willing to work with, you know, because Pace has a really vibrant department, because he worked with Diana Sweetage on that at the time. And we could probably get someone, a graduate student, to work with him on it, and they could at least see what we're looking at. And say to everyone, listen, we're seeing the birth rates pop again. And let's not do this, make the same mistake all over again. Let's try to get ahead of this. And, you know, we can put that, what happened in the context of these new numbers we're seeing. That could be useful. Debbie?
Could I,
Is
Could I
anybody
interrupt?
online? Somebody wants to speak.
Yes.
Okay, that's what was happening.
Martin? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
I
didn't
want-
see you.
yeah, I've had my hand up for a while. It keeps getting taken down.
We don't
Uh,
have it.
Oh, anyway,
I just kept
want-
telling him to unmute himself when he did it, so.
Okay.
oh, I just want to comment about one thing that I feel is important for downtown schools. On the FIDI side, on the eastern side of Broadway, you have several schools, but you really don't have any kind of outdoor recreation areas for the kids. And I think that there was a big opportunity a few years ago when they built the park in front of Peck Slip School, but they didn't build it for the kids. They built it for, I don't know who they built it for. They built it for, concrete plaza with benches, and I don't know if anybody ever uses it. So it was really a wasted area that they could have built a recreation area that could be used by the kids at Peck Slip School. And on the west side you have the athletic fields by Battery Park City, and Washington Market Park, I think given that there are more and more developments going up in FIDI and in the adjacent area, you know, you have Gotham Park, which Rosa and her crew really worked on, but it's really not something that's very kid friendly. But other than that, there's really no outdoor recreation for the kids at Peck Slip, at Spruce Street, the middle school kids at LMC, you know, and I think that should be something, if there's opportunities that come up, that we should advocate for.
Yeah, I mean, it's top of the list. It's just that they come back saying, you know, take it or leave it. You needed a school, we built you a school, we told you it wasn't a great spot, and there's nothing we can do about it. And I think, you know, it comes back to Andrew's point about teeth. How, you know, the strategy that we have to develop a strategy for how we're going to handle these planning issues. And because they're not responding to an ask. And so it requires a strategy that backs them more into it. Like, people don't do things until they become really uncomfortable. It's just human nature. And so we made things very uncomfortable back then. And I think that is where we need to be again, it looks like. So that we don't get caught on the wrong side of this. I mean, they denied that we even need to change sanitation. I don't know how many of you were on Wall Street and Fulton Street in, was that about 2010, 2012? There's 12 feet of trash. They never adjusted sanitation. There was no infrastructure change down here. I'm amazed that the electrical grid held. I honestly, I really am. But I think that, you know, actually it didn't hold. We did have that blackout. But I think that, you know, that's what's probably gonna take more, because we definitely asked for space for Peck Slip. That was like, and we, you know, made a contingency for these schools, like Spruce Street, you know, we talked about where their outdoor space was going to be, and then they just said, take it or leave it. You've got a beautiful auditorium, you've got a great gym, nobody else has those things. They just keep comparing the lack. You know, if you have a gym, you suddenly are flush. And, you know, out of the 9 schools down here, we would have 3 full-size gyms. So, you know, one of the things we advocated a couple years ago for is a freestanding gym for all the schools to use with the next piece of real estate that the city has that becomes available. And I think we need to fight for that again. Remember, we fought for that when 5 World Trade was doing their charrette about what community needs should go in there. And Andrew brought up also on this topic, indoor, like we don't have enough winter space for our kids. And we need indoor athletic and recreation facilities down here.
Well, that was sort of what I was going to mention was I would be interested in how some of the like DYCD or intramural sports or any of the sort of elective after school kind of programs are faring in terms of numbers and space. Like, I just wonder, does it correlate with the lack that exists within the school system? And
It's
so,
actually
like, looking at
interestingly
teams and
different.
things like that.
Yeah. But Bob did come and speak to us about where his biggest problem right now is that they didn't renew contracts on several of his schools. And I think we just passed a resolution, I can't remember if you were at that meeting, but they told them in May that they weren't renewing a contract for several of the schools that he's been servicing for years,
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
And what had his experience been prior to that? Like, was he working with a full roster of
Yes,
kids?
and he was still able to, from what he told me, he was still able to offer financial aid to a significant amount who needed it. I didn't realize that. There's a lot of families that are in need down here that can't afford those summer camps, can't afford the after school for elementary. It's
And
expensive.
we operate through our UICD contracts. We operate the middle school athletic league, which we offer all of these sports, It's like
Mhm.
PSA, for
Yeah.
high school. We're struggling obviously because we're doing it for schools that aren't even in our, that we
In the
are
district?
providing services for and outside of the district. So we're doing all of that coordination. So
Meaning
we're-
that you're opening it up to.
yeah, so we're doing all of the scheduling and all of the coordination for like 200 schools with multiple different schools throughout the year. So we're trying to figure out how we can continue to do that for the schools outside of the ones that we have now that are much less than, we're gonna have going to school year. So we're all, and parents are upset obviously because they want their kids in competitive sports, it's.
I was gonna ask you
It's
if you heard
weird
any
for them
news.
to join.
I was gonna ask you if you heard any news on any feedback, anything changing.
Not really.
They're gonna stick with this plan?
Yeah,
I'm so
I mean,
shocked.
the only thing we do know is there were a few schools that did not get assigned CDOs, and so there's an opportunity there for us that very likely schools we already had that were not assigned, but outside of that,
I mean, did our resolution ask for them to not pull the trigger for this September?
This year.
Yeah, just to give,
We did say that, if they feel as though there's a reason they need to make a change, please let us know what the reason is. I think everybody deserves to hear that. And I think that they should make it next year when parents have, they applied to schools in November and December.
yeah.
And then they're hearing in May
And it's
that their kid is just going into sixth grade, isn't gonna be at the school they have the after school. And after school isn't just like tutoring and ceramics, it's their sports. So if these are kids that are playing, I know that my daughter thought heavily about where she was going to middle school and because she was a track runner, swimmer. And so it was top on our list that they had a well-developed track program. And not all middle schools do. And some of them have great, like LMC has great dance and performing arts. They have good sports too, actually. But there are some that, all of them have a different vibe, right?
Yeah.
So if you tell someone in May that the school their kid's going to in September is not gonna have the athletic program that you thought they were, we felt that that was really problematic. So that was what our resolution called for. And I was gonna ask you if any feedback had come to the office. I think we need to follow up with the list of people we sent that to, actually. And see what their plans are and get an update. And if you anything you hear, let me know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
a question or two, if I may, on this. So the proposal, suggestion, recommendation, however we want to frame it, is to make this part of the checklist or part of the package for a land use application.
Yeah, or more so actually for the land use committee to use as they're reviewing projects. So whether that's part of the application or they're completing it as they're reviewing the project.
So just, and I don't want to get too granular, but a couple of logistical questions. Do you see this coming from the applicant, the submission or capture of this information for the land use to review? Or
Yeah.
where do you think this ultimately comes from?
I mean, I think,
And
That
again,
is
we may not have the answers here, but
Yeah.
it's something.
I'm sorry,
I don't think we want,
I don't know how this process works, and I apologize that I'm remotely, but I will say that absolutely this should be coming from the applicant. They should be putting this as part of their thought process, how many people, how they're dealing with the schools, the students, how they're working with the community. Because if they want to get things through, they're going to do their best from the beginning to think about it. It's maybe a little optimistic. And I apologize again for jumping in with the hand raise. All new to me here, but I think that getting it as part of the application will have it as part of the thought process from the beginning. If we're trying to resolve something after all of these people and all this money and all this time is spent, It's always going to be an afterthought. Put it at the beginning.
Yep, and then how to use this portion. There's language about 60 days from certification to hold a public hearing. So how do you envision, do you have any thoughts? Is this a proposal or is this something you've taken from somewhere?
No, I came up with this and this is based on my understanding of how the process works. And so this may require Trisha touching base with the chair of land use.
I think that's.
We met last time.
Yeah,
I think that has to happen
Yeah.
anyway.
the 60 days.
Well, the discussion about incorporating this into.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
I
understanding
don't-
where it would fall in their process.
so, and maybe I'm going to be educated here. I'm not all that necessarily familiar with the land use process, but I'm not aware that every land use application is open for 60 days with a public hearing.
I mean-
Is that our understanding? or-
That is my understanding, but I honestly, it was, a day's worth
If
of.
it's sure, if it's certified, if it's non-certified, it's not.
And what is that? What's the difference?
Not sure.
I just know that if it's certified, it has to come to the community board and the community board has to vote on it. If it's not certified, they can just vote on it on their own. We don't have to chime in on it.
Well, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
there's a lot of applicants. There's a lot of people looking, there are a lot of developers that don't trigger a ULURP. They're not in a property that's gonna trigger a ULURP. I'm dealing with that over on Greenwich Street right now. We can't require them to do anything.
Yeah, so the CB one just would never be involved in those anyways.
Well, I mean,
They'll
One
come
could argue-
before us. They'll come before us, but it may be more as a matter of information than seeking something specific.
well, they're required to do what's called an EIP, which is an environmental impact statement. And that's what we're going after with this 72-story tower on Greenwich Street, is to say to them, environment, to me, included, what's the impact on the environment around you? And the environment is Washington Market Park, which is the only park for toddlers. You've got a senior center, the only one in the neighborhood. You have a large senior population at the building. And then you've got the federal townhouses that are directly to the north of it. You also have the impact of the construction on a neighborhood with young children. And it's going to be a massive amount of construction, and that involves a significant amount of demolition.
And so
So-
that project didn't fall into.
It's not a ULURP. It's not a ULURP.
Okay.
And so it's an as-of-right build. And so I think we should extend it from ULURP to include as-of-right development as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that process would work in terms of the land use committee's input, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I would agree if it's possible.
Yeah, I think it just needs to come up and go under that bucket of environmental impact statement instead of a ULURP checklist, just kind of a different outfit.
Okay.
Same thing, but make it something they have to respond to. Again, we can't make them do anything. It's gonna require strategy to get people to cooperate.
How
So-
do you think the land use committee would take to something like this with teeth? Do you think that they'd be open to it, or do you think they would not? Because we really do, I think at this level, need their buy-in.
I gotta think about the best way to do it. I think, maybe I'll reach out to the chair and start with that, and then figure out the best way. But I think it's a great idea, Stacy, and I think it's good timing because, we have the situation at 150, we have this ability to look back and say, let's not be here again. We're here again and again and again. And then we have the district needs. It's all happening at the same time. And so I think it's a great opportunity. So what I would suggest, and people can suggest something different, I would suggest giving this meeting until the end of September. And then at that point, if we don't have something on the schedule, moving to a resolution and moving to connecting with land use about developing this approach and getting their feedback, of course, and charting a path forward between the resolution, aligning that with the land use committee. Because, you know, ideally, it would be a joint resolution. You know, I mean, that would be nice to really have them on board. Because I think that's been something that, again, it's strategy. We're stronger when we work together. It's like, I remember back then, we used to do joint resolutions with CD2's Youth and Ed Committee. I had a lot of power because we're half District 2. I mean, we are two really strong community boards. And if we're aligned on something, they're more inclined to pay attention.
We should go back and say something.
We should maybe talk to them about this, see if they'd be interested in joining forces. We tend to get the, you know, our neighborhood has this unique thing about it in terms of building, where we have Wall Street converting to residential. And it's like 1,000 apartments come online in 1 year.
Yeah.
When it takes the city 6 years to build a school. I mean, those timelines just really don't work out.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't see that so much in the West Village, in the Central Village.
I am concerned because Exchange, Broad, like in a 2-block radius, I think there's like 600 units coming up in the next year.
Yeah,
A lot of them are 2 bedrooms. Where are all those kids gonna go?
right,
Heck, and 150 and 276 are all at capacity
yeah.
or near it.
I think this is a good time to do that again, to do that little PowerPoint again. So I'll reach out to Eric and get the ball moving on that. Elise, do you have anything else you wanted to, because your hand was up and I didn't see it. Did you have anything else you wanted to?
Oh, my hand was up earlier. Thank you very much. But my hand was up earlier just to kind of respond to, you know, the timeline of when we should be asking these questions of the applicants.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was a great job, Stacy. I really appreciate you taking the initiative on this.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much again. So let's put this on September just to check in on it. I'll update you guys if I have any news about this meeting. And then we can chart our path forward. And in the meantime, I will see if I can get this data exploration moving with an unsuspecting intern over. All right, shall we now move into our capital expense? Did we have some, yeah, here, we have a worksheet that Alice wanted me to pay attention to. Just as a guideline for us.
Is what we submitted last year.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just remember.
She is, you know, and had a good point about sort of like, we do these every year and usually they don't really listen to us, or they say, don't have the funding, can't do it. And so I think there is a little bit of institutional exhaustion on the part of, if I can be so bold, on the part of the committees, because it gets to be really laborious. And so I had a great call with Alice who said, let's get some energy behind this again. Let's just hit a refresh. And let's be maybe more specific with our requests. Add a little bit more information, make them more powerful. And then she, you know, gave us this little worksheet. So if we look at it, focus on the biggest needs facing CB1 residents, workers, and visitors. Pair specific projects with broader initiatives that benefit the district. Prioritize areas, infrastructure, services, and poor condition or lacking investment. Be strategic. Limit the committee's request to 5 to 10, 5 priority projects. And then look ahead to emerging needs the district should prepare for. All ideas must be city-funded projects. Capital, infrastructure, construction, and equipment, or expense, which is staffing, maintenance, programs, and enforcement. So. This was our last year. So if you look down the agency response and explanation,
Person from the public, she's Aaron from 234 would like to speak, if that's okay with you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Tasha.
Yes.
yes.
I'm
hi,
not sure if you can
Sasha.
see me or if you can just hear me.
We can only hear you.
No,
That's okay.
Okay. I didn't ask to speak per se, but I just put something in the chat around the School Construction Authority public data. Because the start of the conversation was around demographic projections, birth projections, housing projections. So the School Building Authority does publish that data. So I just put a link to it in the chat to help around that part of the conversation.
Thank you for that. I will say that data is familiar to me and that at the time it had not been accurate. But we will certainly look at it again and consider it. I
Yeah.
think oftentimes it isn't as robust as we would want, you know? Because again, if they're not wanting to build or they're afraid of overbuilding, they tend to be pretty conservative on what their projections are. But it is useful to have and a great thing to check in on. So thanks for bringing it to us. And reminding
Great.
me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the people who are proposing building conversions, if we point them to a reference point like the publicly available data, then they have a starting point to say, well, then what will the impact of this building project be on the data or something like that? A way to extrapolate. So in terms of the checklist, the ability to point them to some of the data might help. So anyways, just for your consideration.
No, it's a good point, and we should definitely consider it. So thank you. For sure. Anybody else? All right. So if you look at the agency response from our last year's requests, just take a quick glance over them. Now, if they turned us down before, it does not mean we can't ask for the same thing again. And there is a good reason to ask for the same thing again. It shows that we're really sticking with it and that we really still need it. So does anybody feel as you read down these, can you speak to the fact that you definitely think we need it or definitely don't? Does anybody have opinions thus far?
I'll jump in. In doing research, I think that the second and third asks, the elevators at 81 New Street and 26 Broadway, it's been in our last 2 years. And to Allison's point that you brought up, it's a very specific ask with a very specific agency, and it is needed.
Yeah.
I say this as someone who has used those elevators and they are horrid. Kids get stuck in them frequently. Parents get stuck in them. Like I've heard awful stories. Yeah. And so I would advocate to put those two in because it is specific. It's capital. There's a specific agency. It's been in the last 2 years. And I think there's some power in that we're sticking with, like these are our priorities.
I agree. I'm wondering if, and Lucy, you can tell me, I don't know how these go to agencies. When you just put that sentence there, it doesn't tell the whole story. Is there an opportunity to give them some history with these?
You can connect links to it if you choose to. Zach works on the performance document with PPP too, so you can.
So you can link a PDF or something? Okay.
And I mean, this may become more successful working with the now 2 schools that are in there to have them and the parents get involved in whether it's writing letters or doing 311 reports or whatever. I don't know if that would help that request, but if it would, I think that's something you could do.
I think it would really help because, I have witnessed the elevator opening between floors with a full group of children in it. I imagine if we could gather several stories like that and organize it into a PDF and provide a link, this would have more teeth to it. And so maybe if, is anybody here at LMC?
Yeah.
LMC Parents, you are?
Yeah.
Would you mind, looking into gathering those things? Do you think there's a way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just putting out a Google form and saying, do you have a horror story?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also the city's 311 tracker, maybe we can comb through some of that data and see if anyone has submitted 311 requests for it. I don't know if that's the case, but that may be something that we could lean on as well.
Okay, great.
Elise, you're more than welcome to just jump in since we don't have that many people in the room, so.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Help
Oh,
yourself to
thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand, is this, if this has been shared prior, I apologize. I did miss it, so this is a little new to me. Is this document something that we use internally just to kind of discuss amongst ourselves? Is this something that we share externally? How does
This
this
goes to the
get,
city
how does this get
agencies.
translated?
So every year, every community board is asked to put forward their priorities for their coming
Right.
year for what we need from our city agencies. So each committee here will pull together their list. And then the community board will look at all the committees' lists, and they will then put together a whole list to then send to the city agencies. And the office knows which asks go to which department. So in other words, some of ours were Department of Transportation, some of them were the Department of Education, some of them were, DYCD. And so what they'll do is take all of ours and put it into buckets with everybody else's. And off it goes. And then the city responds several months later and says, we can accommodate this, we can't accommodate, that's what you're looking at as their responses from last year. And this is something we do every year in the fall. We get started talking about it in July and we submit it when, Lucy, November, October?
With September, you review what you've discussed tonight, and even with the exec in August if they meet, and then September you review exactly what was discussed, and as you ask Stacy about for history, have all that information, and we give it to Zach, and then in October he submits it to the agencies, and the agencies meet with Zach and all the other district managers, and they'll come back 6 months later and say, no fun.
Elise, I just sent you the one from last October as a sample.
Thank you.
Could I add, I'm looking at the listing here and they talk about recreational space for I think it was or gathering space for PS 150. Along the lines of the things I mentioned before, I mean, there's a plan afoot. I don't know how far it's gotten for the new
Or can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, sure. I have an old set of headphones because my newer one died, and I'm waiting for the replacement to come. There's a plan afoot for the development, a new plan for 250 Water Street, and there's a lot of moving parts that go into that. But at the end of the day, it would be great if it's approved or whatever they plan to do there, they could somehow contribute or set aside some space for recreational space for the kids in this part of the neighborhood. And I don't know if it's something we could work in on this request.
Well, I mean, that would just be from the developer though, right?
Well, people make the approval of development. I mean, look what you guys did with Spruce Street. You took out a whole
Is
floor.
250 Water a Euler?
I don't know
Is
what
that
the
development
status is.
Euler?
I don't know. I don't know what the status of it. I saw there was a new proposal that came out at the end of the spring. I don't know where it is. It was mentioned. I haven't heard anything about it since then. But you know, I think if there's any way that we could secure additional recreation facilities, I mean, we have schools on our side of Broadway, which are essentially concrete jungles. I mean, I hate to say it, put it in that way because they're nice schools, but in terms of the outdoor facilities, there are none. So and you know, they built the nice, beautiful new park along the East River, and there are lots of facilities up there, but that's pretty far away for children and really not something that's an accessory to the schools that exist down here. And there's all kinds of work being done on the East River, yet there doesn't seem to be any thought about providing additional recreation space for the kids who go to school at Peck Slip, at Spruce Street, at LMC, and things of that nature. So I don't know if it's something that we could work into and ask.
Well, they had just, I asked, because, you know, they came back to us when we asked for the space at 5 World Trade, saying it's not our property. And I think that this is something we're gonna have to be strategic about. I think it's gonna go into that, you know, thing that we're talking about doing, into planning.
Yeah.
And it's gonna have to be something that we incentivize the developer to do. And I don't know that it's so much a district. I mean, a district need would be to say, we need indoor recreation, like a field. Like we need a big enough, substantial indoor space for all of the kids in our schools to be able to use downtown. And the next time the city building turns over,
Yeah.
we would like you to provide that. You know,
I
because
mean,
that's.
the-
they're
There's
gonna be
also
able
the
to
plan,
do.
there's also the plan now for 100 Gold Street. I don't know what they plan to do over there.
Is,
you know,
is that a city building?
That's a city building that they plan to, I think, sell the building and privatize it and knock it down and build something there. I mean, there was the deal that was made to build affordable housing there. I don't know if that's still applicable because it was the Adams administration that made the deal. I don't know if Mamdani is going forward with it. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on in FIDI, and none of which seem to include making more facilities available for the kids who go to school. Because you know, at one time, as we all know, FIDI was not a kid-friendly area. There weren't families. Now it's more and more families, people with children, the kids that, you know, I don't have to go on about it, everybody knows. So they're really, and I live there and I know there really aren't, you know, adequate facilities right on the ground in our area for kids to go out and play sports, play recreational. I mean, even something like the Imagination Playground, which exists on John Street, is you know, something that had some well intentioned, but it's really underutilized. It's wasted space. You know, even in the summertime, it doesn't get used. It doesn't, you know, it's an imagination playground, so you kids have to go there and use their imagination, but there's really nothing to do there.
So I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. I mean, I know because I you know, I have a 10-year-old and he's grown up in FIDI, and now when we go to play, we have to go either to a better, you know, West Thames Park or north of into the new John Lindsay Park. You know, good thing he likes the bike because it's it's 2 miles away, but there's really nothing.
So I think there's general, I'm sorry, Morton, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. It's just not, there's nothing right here in our neighborhood.
So I think there would be general support that this is something that we need to prioritize, but just to take Tricia's comment, from my experience with these submissions anyway, the more we can direct people to the assets that we think are suitable for conversion into recreational space,
Yeah.
the more consideration it's gonna get. I think just a general statement that we need the city to consider city resources to be converted into recreational space, I think it's just too easy for them to dismiss.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of an onus on us to identify what we think potential city assets are for conversion into that recreational space.
I just noticed that I think the and again, we have to also identify the agency. So the city agency that is in charge of public-private partnerships, which is what this would end up being, is NYCEDC. And they do development deals for commercial mixed use, city-owned land disposition. And I think unless it's all affordable, it would probably be EDC. And if it was a state property, then it would be ESD. So we could look into, for the next month or so, look into what is coming online, what is planned, I'll look into 250 water, 100 gold. We'll look into it, and maybe we can call upon that agency to consider adding this space at an upcoming partnership that they are in, at 250 water or 100 gold or whatever we find in our research. I mean, we don't have a lot of information about the terms of deals, but it would be one way of being more specific.
I have a list of all the upcoming conversions, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it's 61 Broadway, 25 Water Street, 80 Broad Street, 40 Exchange, 40 Fulton, 101 Greenwich, 80
Yeah.
Pine, and 250 Water.
Can we do that?
Those are all,
Is that all?
so it's like 800, 13, 2,000,
Yeah.
2,300,
I haven't talked to them
2,600.
anyway about the other things.
These are number of units. It's like 3,000 units.
Not that it impacts what we're doing here, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a moratorium, given what happened.
But I kind of feel like I want to
I'm
talk to
just
them
saying.
along.
I'm gonna with the building and stuff.
Yeah.
Although they
What-
have.
What were you
Street,
saying
that
about
was
the
like they
moratorium?
just stopped the building discussion.
So.
All right, so what if we do this?
Wait,
What if
wait,
we-
what was it said about some moratorium, a moratorium?
You said
on
you
what?
wouldn't be surprised if there was a.
I just said, given what happened in Midtown over the last week or so, there's been a lot of buzz about whether or not there's gonna be a moratorium on some of these conversions.
Oh, okay. Well, everything has to be, it has to be the job of the building department to make sure that, everything is done safely. That seems ridiculous. Someone
So
goes
what
out.
I'll do is, in this next month, I'm gonna reach out to Nada and Patrick anyway about our land use chairs, about our next steps with our infrastructure list. But I'm also going to speak with them. Lucy had a really good idea that we put this request in together with them for this and point this at EDC. And I think then that could satisfy that specific thing that we're looking for here and that Alice was talking about.
Sorry, one question I've had, and I remember asking this last year and I just don't recall the answer. We have 3 separate line items that talk about school renovation or upgrade. Is there a reason we listed those separate as opposed to one item and specifically citing 3 assets that we felt at a minimum needed to fall under?
I think at least 81 New Street and 26 Broadway could be combined because they're the same building. It is 2 separate elevator banks, but
There must be a reason we cited these as 3 specific line items versus one item.
It's because they can refuse one and approve the other.
Mhm.
Like if they get nitpicky, they're going to say, we can do this, but not that. And so I think Tammy had requested that we keep them separate and so that we can list them in terms of the urgency. I didn't know that 75 Broad was above 81 new. I wouldn't have chosen that. I think 81 new is an emergency.
Yeah.
And, so I would, in terms of that agency, in terms of the DOE, I would put that very high up on the list. But I don't understand that SCA renovate interior repair elevators serving school facilities at 26 Broadway. That's totally redundant,
Yeah,
and I think that's an error.
yeah, it should read the same as the one above it. Renovate or-
Correct, so we're just taking that out.
But what
So
we're
try-
writing in those is very simple, and that's what I was trying to ask earlier, is like, who sees this? And we made a good point earlier that there's videos of students getting stuck. There's a lot to say. Can we just even adjust the language we're putting in this and say emergency, accessibility? Can we use some more language that would actually reflect a higher priority need? I see it later on in this list, like when we talked about 150, it has a big explanation of what it's needed and why it's needed. Does something like
Yes.
that help us right now? Because if that's the case, I'd be happy to kind of, as a former grant writer, I'd be happy to take a look and just kind of add a little zhuzh to this language, if that would, if
Please,
that's how
thank
this is
you.
used. Yeah,
I would love
course.
that. Thank you so much. So if you want to take, Stacy's gonna do the research and pull together the data,
Yeah.
everybody's experiences at LMC. And then if you wouldn't mind just giving us the, the copy for what to put in this box, because it always looks like this, unfortunately. It does
Yeah,
expand.
that's not, I'm not gonna,
So-
I'm not gonna buy that, right? Like, it's unfortunately we're living in a time where people need a little more energy. So, I'm happy to try if someone just give me, a place to look for not just ours, but past things that might have gotten approval. I mean, I assume this is all public on the website, on the borough
Yeah, I
president's
do think they
website. What,
all need to be. We need
Yeah,
to
so-
take, the ones we're putting back on the list, we need to take up a notch in terms of the descriptions
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah, I'm
And I
glad
don't know that
to,
it's, and I don't know that
try.
it's just the request column, or the, I think it can not just be the FYI 27 request, but I think it can also start in the other request column,
Yeah.
address emergency situation that exists.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, let's, I'm glad to help. I wasn't able to, I don't have access to this document, so if it can be either shared in the chat or emailed to me separately, I'm more than happy to take a
I reshared
stab,
it 5
talk with
minutes
people
ago.
and try.
I reshared it 5 minutes ago.
All right,
look at
thank
your
you so
email.
much.
No, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
You were in the meeting, and,
I'm not looking, I'm
And-
not
and-
paying attention.
that's okay.
And
I
not
just
to
want to
go-
say back to your point, this is, and what Tricia was saying, that Alice has now decided. Well, not decided, she is saying in here, and I think Tricia said it, let's elaborate more
Yes.
than what it is. And maybe not keep using the same wording every year, because they seem to be bypassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go too far afield on this, but do some of these give rise to items where we put them on specifically meeting agendas? Like, do we bring someone in to talk to us, or for us to talk to them about 81 New Street and 26 Broadway?
I mean, getting them,
It might be hard.
yeah, I mean, like, this is a year now for this emergency meeting. So yes, in a perfect world, it would be so much better than for them to hear from us instead of this little exercise,
I
But-
mean, it's both, like we do the exercise, but also try to, I don't know if it's part of that meeting you're talking about, interagency, or if this is just a 1 or 2 item. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that answers that either, because the guidelines on this are pretty specific. It's a pretty specific thing that they have. But if we can put something to that effect where we would like to request that we meet with this agency to discuss this emergency, the happening at school, since this has been on our district needs list for 4 years, and we have you know, we could do something like that.
Well, sorry to clarify, I was proposing keep doing this.
Yeah.
As we've done it with Elisa's dressing up of the language,
Mhm.
but separately, aside from this, we've got a crisis at 26 Broad or 81 New. We need someone to come to our youth and ed committee meeting to talk to us about this.
Have you ever seen that happen and a district needs to ask? I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. I just wonder
Let's be
whether,
bold.
Well, I'm not saying put it on the district needs sheet.
oh,
I'm saying let's sort of follow the district need format. Again, Elise will dress up some of the language.
right.
Put this aside. We prepare monthly agendas for this meeting.
Mhm.
Do we ask someone to come and talk to us about the situation at
Oh, I see what you're saying.
completely separate?
Separate.
independent?
I think he's saying so when
Independent.
next year comes, you have.
Yeah.
We can reinforce that, look, we've highlighted this repeatedly on our district capital needs, but it's now risen to a level where we need a separate discussion with someone as to how.
So tandem it to make it even more meaningful. I mean, when do they make their decision and respond to us, you know? I think, I have this feeling,
October, so.
it does, I have this feeling it's usually like spring.
Yeah.
So what we could do is put that request out. And I'll find out from Alice, she'll know, when they're about to start discussing and making a decision on this and get them to come right before that. So that we make the most of it,
Right.
you know? Okay, I like that.
Could I say
I mean,
something?
you kind of did that with Governor's Island, the harbor school. We had it on our district needs,
Yeah,
but separately, you were a dog with a bone facing the agencies that ultimately got that done. Wasn't our district needs solution.
it was not. But you're right, it doesn't hurt to have them both, and I personally think that these are great. But I think just like anything in life, you've got to get in front of the people.
Right.
And they need to see the humanity instead of the words. And that situation over there needed that. And, you know, finally, it was via the SCA. Well, it was also because they were doing the climate center. They were deeply focused, you know, we took advantage of that. And I think,
And you can't do that for all these items, but
Right.
there are one or two that just seem to be of that level that require that type of playbook.
well, I certainly think we could get them here to say, listen, we're calling you here because this has been on our district needs for 4 years. And you keep saying funding not available. What kind of funding do you want to make available? You can make it workman's comp. You can make it an insurance claim when someone dies, or you can just pay for this now. You know, and I think you have to be able to say that to someone's face for them to understand the seriousness of it. So I think it's a great idea. And let's plan on sending that letter, you know, maybe November. And see if we can get them here in November or December before they make this decision.
Could I ask a question? I looked at the link on the email, not the one you just sent, because I can't open that, but the one that was on the agenda tonight, the original meeting notice. And the document on Google Drive has an extensive narrative summary of district needs. And then it goes further and there's an itemized list from each committee. I would be happy to write a paragraph about the issue that I've been raising tonight, which is the need for more recreation facilities within the east side of the Community Board 1 district, and and submit it, and people could look at it. It's sort of like a narrative paragraph as an overall overview, which is that the children who attend the schools in our district, particularly on the east side, Peck Slip, Spruce Street, LMC, need more recreational facilities immediately adjacent to the community in which they live, rather than having to travel a couple of miles in order to enjoy recreation. And wherever that opportunity arises, that should be something that should be taken into account.
Well, again, I mean, they asked us to maybe be more specific, so we're going to, I agree that we should have that be an ask. And what we talked about doing was to look into upcoming developments, target this at EDC, so that it's a little bit more specific and therefore hopefully more compelling. Because a general ask of more recreation space on the east side, plus the fact something great might come up just across into the west side that the east side schools can use. I don't think we should be telling them where this should be, because I don't think there's that much space. I mean, if there was a lot of empty space, I would say that makes sense, but I wouldn't want to lose any opportunities by telling them where to build it. I don't know,
Well, I
it's
don't
just
know.
me.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with it, because they keep, you know, there are existing facilities
I mean, there
on the
is
other
more development
on the
going on the east side.
well, but you know, there are existing facilities for kids to play in on the west side. You have the BMCC, you have Washington Market Park, you have Battery Park City, you have West Thames Park. Even the new thing they built in the Battery, they have or the park where they have the fish on the west side, and Pier 25, all this. But there's really nothing directly down, people that kids can go downstairs in FIDI and City Hall, that was built with kids in mind, and they keep building things like, you know, the park by Peck Slip and concrete and brick or even, you know, even the park they built on down by the Battery with
So
the
more,
environmental
I
stuff.
think what could be useful is the kind of park recreation you're talking about is like waterfront and open space, which FIDI is super short on. However, if you see, maybe I will ask you to do this for the next meeting. If you can identify some potential places for greening and creating that park situation you were talking about, that's like the ones you're referencing on the west side, can you gather potential locations?
I know I'm not an engineer. I'm not a designer of parks.
No, it's just
uh,
if you see it, you know, if you see the potential spaces
I mean, if it was up to me, I
on the
would tear out.
waterfront.
If it was up to me, I would tear out the uh you know, the imagination playground. You know, you have all along south. You know, they did build a new you know, Pier 42, which is a little bit far, where they have they built a park for kids. People don't even know that it's there, but again, it's a little bit far from City Hall and FIDI. There's a lot of things that are going on potentially on the waterfront. They're building the resiliency plan. I think that's probably set in stone. It's probably too late to factor into, you know, all the things that are going around South Street, just north of the seaport. You know, you have 100 Gold Street, which is adjacent to the Gotham Park. I don't know if that could be, area could be, design into 100 Gold Street to maybe give more space to Gotham Park, so it's not all under the FDR Drive and the Brooklyn Bridge, which kind of limits the use of, you know, for kids. I mean, this is all something that's beyond my. I'm not a urban planner. I'm a lawyer, so I don't know where this could be fit in, but I think that the as an overall goal, I look at the report that's on Google Docs, and there's lots of overall discussion of how we need help for homeless people, affordable housing, all kinds of things like that. Why can't we make it a goal as ongoing in the future to provide more recreation for the kids who go to the schools, which are just, you know, concrete. You know, I think that would make the schools more attractive, would make enrollment in the schools more attractive, and would generally Yeah, I'm not going to give a speech, but I just think it's something that would be desirable. So I know,
So we are,
I'm sorry,
so we
I'm
did
throwing it out
spend
there.
a good amount of time at the beginning of the meeting with one approach to that, which we're gonna take on, as you know. And I think that now we're on the district needs requests. And what we've been asked to do is get more specific this year than saying more recreation space on the east side. We have not been successful with that approach. And so the reason I asked you, Morton, is if we are able to identify some opportunities, and it would be things like you just mentioned, there's a planned development at 250 Water, there's a planned development at 100 and Gold. Is there an outdoor, like you just also said, that Imagination Playground, you don't love it? Tell us why you don't love it. We need the feedback and let's have a discussion about it, because there could be other parents who feel the same way you do about that playground.
I'll back
Elise?
that one up. I'll back that one up. We went there as a kid like twice. I think my kid got hurt and that was the end of it. It was not, it's not fun when you have anxious, like, you know, energetic kids. It's not, it doesn't engage. I'd love more grass, wherever you can. I
Well, I mean,
understand there's
that's a
costs that
great
we all would love that.
opportunity.
But I would just say I agree with Morton. Maybe I can kind of, think a little bit about some of the reasons it's great or not great and some of the other opportunities around. I'm happy to think with you about that.
Yeah, it's an imagination playground. You have to imagine that there's a playground there.
I
Well,
mean,
you
it's
know
fun
what?
to climb.
Could it be
Sure.
that gets a redesign?
Yes.
Could that be an ask?
That's been
Yeah.
something parents have been talking about lately, that no one wants to go there because it's gross.
Okay, boom,
That's a good capital project.
yes.
It's gross like hell.
It's just old, they don't have, you need someone who's there to bring out like the building blocks and all the toys that they put out to use your imagination, and they frequently don't have someone there to do it. And so then the playground just becomes this hot in the sun, nothing to do. Like, the toys aren't out, there's not much to do.
Does Parks or the city run that, or is that one of the
I think
Friends
it's the
of?
park.
groups?
It's like parks, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the Parks Department.
Yeah.
I didn't
Sometimes,
even know they had toys or anything to bring out there. I've never, ever seen it.
That's
we saw,
horrifying.
we
but
saw
yeah, no one
that
wants to
10
go.
years, never saw it.
A lot of grass.
once or
Point a
twice we
community
saw it
person
when
to-
Aaron was a little boy.
Like to facilitate the access and play with lots.
I mean, yes, I think, I don't know what the setup is, if it's an employee or a volunteer. I think it's a parks employee who does it. But yeah, they're frequently, I don't use that playground a lot, but I've heard other people saying that they don't want to go there anymore. It's just not a pleasant playground to go to.
I mean, so maybe part of the framing of that is reconfigure, redesign, Imagine Playground such that utilization is not dependent upon a parks employee
Yeah.
setting it up every day.
Okay, so I'm gonna propose something. Stacy, can you connect with Elise and Morton? Can I give you guys the three of you on an email chain to bring up your experiences at that park and make your recommendations so that we can talk over them in September? It sounds like you all have unique experiences there. And then we can
I'll connect with people in the neighborhood.
review it. Okay, great. This is awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing, you
I
know.
think that would be a great ask and really helpful for the community.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of playgrounds on the east side, and that's a no-brainer because it already exists. And a redesign would be amazing.
And just to Morton's point, so Morton, I hear you're not a urban designer, nor am I. But I think we can, again, I think everyone agrees with the point that you're making. The question is, how do we articulate it in such a way that it gets the best chance for consideration? And I think we can have a headline statement, critical need for more recreational space on the east side, that might include the redevelopment projects of 100 Gold, of 250 Water, of whatever, and let the urban planners figure out how to take that space and create recreational assets for us.
Yeah, because if you say that you see it, you know this development is happening, it puts them on the hook in a different way. You know, because it lets them know our expectations are, it's like, we see that you've got these developments coming up. So we see this as an opportunity and we are holding you accountable to look into this. And that's what I think Alice was trying to get at in terms of specificity, is so that the more specific you can be,
Yeah.
the more accountable you make them. And so, but I love Andrew's idea for the subhead. And then, I'll let you guys come up with that language, and go over the ideas together. That'd be fantastic.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, good. All right, so that's one. So we have that. And then decouple funding from class sizes,
I had a few thoughts on that one.
okay?
So I think it fits on Alice's point that it's not specific enough.
Right,
But on top of that, there was a lot that happened in June, which I alluded to before in terms of how they funded it and what they funded it with. And so to kind of hit the specificity issue, my thoughts on this one were that we say we want, and I don't know where this would fall in terms of the capital or expense budget, but to say, what is the plan for the two schools that we know that the DOE itself has said aren't gonna hit, to be able to accommodate the students they're supposed to accommodate? And again, that might fall under capital, or maybe that it's just
Being the larger class size, and they won't be able to get to the mandate.
they don't have the space at their current enrollment to meet the mandate.
So to that point, and again, I don't want to take us too far off topic. Did we hear from Kelly that it's not every school needs to be compliant, but if in the aggregate, they can get the universe compliant, which might mean most, I don't know.
I don't know.
it is the case.
It's a tiered, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. It is the case because there is limited amount of space in these schools and they have to create additional classrooms to reduce class size. And they're also getting feedback from the parents that as much as they want class size reduced, they don't want a smaller school in terms of admissions. And so they have a big problem in meeting this, and they're trying to develop creative ways. And so the original mandate gave them a certain amount of time, and I think they're actually gonna go back and ask for more time
Yeah, they did.
with certain schools. And I think what they were told was about this aggregate. They have to show that they are making every effort where they can. And then there is a TBD on the ones like this.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, it's a different issue than funding, in terms of per pupil funding. This was more about, do we stop per pupil funding and start funding a class instead of the amount of students? Because we're de-incentivizing, the schools to be compliant. If they can't function with 21 in first grade, 20?
20.
If they can't run that kindergarten and first grade and second grade properly because of the lack of money, because of per pupil funding, they're incentivized to put 25 kids in that school. If they can't fundraise themselves out of that problem.
Well,
And
I'm sorry.
it's true. I mean, a lot of the schools raise a lot of money.
There
And-
was a bridge over the last 2 years, which basically made up that gap. And so this is a good question, is that bridge going to continue? Because schools had to apply specifically for that extra funding.
Ah,
Yes, and so a lot of
Didn't the-
schools were approved for it.
And
Sorry,
didn't the Mondani administration seek a moratorium on the class size law so they could balance the city budget?
no,
No, they didn't? Okay.
I don't think so. It's a state mandate.
I know, but they went to the governor and the legislature and they were
They did.
asking for it. But I didn't know how that got resolved.
So that's
That was-
kind of
that
right,
was the-
so my understanding is that they approved whatever schools had last year. And so that was like the moratorium on it, except for what they called high needs schools, which there were none in District 2, so none in CB1. So they got no extra funding over what they got last year. Even if, again, they're kids graduate and go to the next grade. And then it extended for New York City from 2028 to 2030. So they extended it by 2 years. So both are
Okay.
true. It was a moratorium, but also a phased in approach.
Okay, good.
I guess what I'm saying is I wasn't involved when this was done last year, but I think to some extent this was already done because of the extra funding that schools could apply for.
Right.
Decoupling of the funding from class size was done to some extent. I'm not well versed on DOE funding, if that will still be the case.
Yeah.
once It's implemented fully.
So you know what, maybe we pause on this one for now, because we certainly don't want to advise something that's going to trip up the execution, the natural execution of that mandate. And maybe give them a chance to do the right thing and leave it up to, I mean, I do know that 234 had said that they were concerned about tiny classes. They don't want them getting too small because they can't afford to continue their programming. Like they have special ed, they have, you know, all those things go into making a school whole. They have occupational and physical therapy. They have turning 5 programs at 234. I don't know about the other schools, elementary schools, because both of my girls went to 234, but, and I know how much pressure there was to fundraise to make up for the gaps in funding. And that's, I think, something, that's where this thing was born, was that we're creating a tale of two cities with our schools by not giving them enough funding to properly run the school and rely on fundraising.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that was born. And I wouldn't know how right now, given the complexity of the class size reduction.
Sorry, just as an FYI, does appear not a moratorium, but he successfully pushed back the deadline by 2 years.
Yeah,
So the deadline is not New York City, not 27, 28, it's
2030 now.
29/30.
Yeah, that was my understanding too.
Okay, so I still personally think that this per pupil funding should be looked at while they're reducing classes.
Sure.
Because it could put some schools that can't fund their fundraise in a robust way in financial jeopardy.
I actually think this is a very smart idea to take to a broader, as someone had mentioned earlier, the broader community boards. Like this is not something that just CB1 should be talking about. This is something that we should have a meeting with every youth and ed across Manhattan or across the boroughs and get us all aligned on this, because you're completely right. This is something that works in upstate New York or in other areas. I can understand why the state was kind of mandating this, but it does not work for New York City in a way that works for our students. I'll tell you what, my school where my kids are right now, they need millions of dollars because they have to create an outside space that was the one outside basketball space that's on a roof. And they have to now convert that into classrooms. And they need a lot of money to be able to do that. So they're taking away the outside space and they're taking away something that the kids need just to be able to accommodate this. Every year they move the offices and they move the classrooms, they move everything around to make this happen. And where are they focusing on the kids? And so I think if we took this as a cohesive group, and we really come together with all of the community boards, I think we can have a much stronger approach than just CB1, because I think this is a much bigger issue, and the approach you're taking is smart. It's smart. You're not incentivizing people to do what they're asking with the per pupil. So I think we could think bigger.
Yeah, that's an intriguing idea, at least, that maybe we take it off of this as a community board ask and do something on a larger scale, because I'm sure we're not the only people thinking about this right now.
Great, it's a good idea.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, and to understand, because school budgeting is confusing and very complicated.
Okay,
Tricia, apologies, I need to run. We don't have any, we're not doing any resolutions.
No,
or-
no,
okay,
no.
Sorry, I just.
no problem.
Night, Andrew. Good night.
All right, add additional hours to enable benefits and increase the pay rate for schools crossing guards. Okay, so this is actually a big one that just needs to be reframed. We have to take this up a notch. And this is actually another one that might be, I don't know if other community districts are going through what we are with our crossing guards,
I'm sorry.
or whether they need it. Exactly. This is, we have schools in such awful places. But this situation is
It's moved along.
another critical one, and that we don't have crossing guards, we're not attracting crossing guards. The NYPD trained them, but they don't know how to manage and incentivize them. It's in the wrong agency, in my opinion. We need to have it come from, it should not be with NYPD. That's my feeling. We have watched it fail now for 7 years. And I think this needs to be with another agency. And I think the plea should be to the mayor's office. I think that, because that is, Bill de Blasio, he tried, he passed some legislation that said he was going to fund 200 new crossing guards. And 100 of them were gonna be full-time workers. That was always our big thing, is that you have to make this job full-time. And so we were excited that he got that passed, but he never implemented it. And I think we need to get more specific with this and say, we call upon the mayor's office to re-implement the de Blasio administration's, or to, I guess implement's the right word, implement the legislation that was passed, and I'll do some research to get this right. I'll write this one. To add and crossing guards and make them a full-time job with benefits. We have gone 7 years without crossing guards. Our kids are in danger. We've already had accidents. And what the system that they have put in place at that time as a response is not working. Literally, if anything else is going on in Lower Manhattan, they pull the police. So they're not covering the schools. And so I'm happy to write that one, but I think it's also a critical ask.
I agree. What we did, and this might help reframe or, refine your request. At 150, because this was an ongoing issue, we finally appealed to the new Manhattan Borough President, and he reached out to the person who's in charge of the tunnel crossing guards, and they were able to basically send one of those crossing guards over for 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes at 2:15.
And where were they?
They were at the tunnel exit. And so he's like, look, I have 8 people, I need 6. I'll send one over every day for 45 minutes, and it has worked fantastically. And so maybe there's an opportunity there to say,
Port Authority?
No, those are
It's-
those are DOT, not DOT. Those are like traffic
Okay.
officers.
They're who?
The
NYPD.
traffic, the NYPD traffic. That's different than
Traffic,
Yeah,
crossing guard.
and I don't know if that's a long-term solution, but I feel like it was a very creative one that worked, and we're gonna keep that going.
I think that crossing guards need additional training,
Yeah, but
with children
officially, yes.
officially. So
But
that,
this is work.
that might not be tenable in the long term, but again, like, I'm hesitant to, recommend Band-Aids, because the other thing that's happened
Maybe
is
like, yeah, that works, leave that.
we can't get out of it then.
Yes.
And then that fails, and they're kind of like this and looking over there.
And we can't say like loosen up the training requirements for crossing guards so that other officers who maybe aren't busy could do it. If someone's giving tickets, they can go do it for 45 minutes.
Well, that's an interesting idea, but I think anytime you work with children, there's all these requirements. Well, I'm telling her this,
Yeah.
my daughter had to be fingerprinted.
Yeah.
So I think they do have to go through something similar,
Yeah.
because they have to put their hands on children sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'll look it up. But it's good to, listen, I do think we should also be doing that
Yeah.
when we need them right now.
Yeah.
But I'm hesitant to put it in this document.
I agree. I agree.
So So let's, if you guys are in favor of that, I'll do some research as to what the legislation was when it was passed, so I can have some facts and data.
Yes.
But I do think this needs to be a full-time job. This crossing guards used to be our retired neighbors and our, our 20-somethings who hadn't found their path yet.
Yeah.
And they could go and have like a 2-week course, get fingerprinted, go through all that stuff and be a crossing guard. And we no longer have that. The cost of living has gotten too high. We don't have people that live close to the schools. So the crossing guards are now coming in, sometimes an hour commute. And it's a crappy job for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, no benefits. And who would want the job? You can go to work at Starbucks.
Right.
For $22 an hour with benefits on a part-time work. Same at Whole Foods.
But I think you're making the right point that this is not a full-time job, which is why they're not getting people to fill this. And even if you were to give a full-time job, and this is, I think this is a little bit beyond our scope, but even if you were giving a full-time job, 4 hours a day is not enough. And so is there potentially a way to integrate this into the school safety?
Well, that's what we did.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We suggested that they work inside the schools.
Right.
And I looked at it at PS 234. I said, would that work with your structure? She goes, yes, absolutely. They could be yard guards. We're always short on yard guards, like for recess and for lots of things that go on in the school. Every single school told me they could definitely use another person all day long. And they actually like the idea too, at least, because one of the great things that used to happen with crossing guards is they would establish relationships with the kids. And this would further support that, where they would know their name, they would care about them, and they would be part of the school community. So I think it's such a win-win. And the city would just have to fund it. They're used to paying $15, $16 an hour for 4 hours a day and no benefits. And they keep thinking that somehow this is still gonna happen. It's not. And I also could find out how much we're paying to have NYPD cover, because that is a big number. You're paying them hourly. I'm gonna remind myself to look up that number. So all these Band-Aids are actually costing them more money probably in the long term than it would for them just to hire full-time guards.
I mean, I don't know, it's obviously not part of the expense, but just so you're aware, if the person has to apply through taking a city exam, and that's like a $68 fee within itself or something
Yeah.
like that. And for low pay, for 4-hour job, you're not gonna take an exam for 68.
No.
And in addition, they have to go through the same process as NYPD employees. So fingerprints, et cetera, that's an extra expense. You're talking about having someone cough up $300 to $400 to make 200 in 6 months.
Yeah, it should be every,
So
I mean,
ridiculous.
I just wanna bring that out there, nothing, it has to do with this, but it's, the same category, which that's maybe another resolution thing in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a couple
I
of
know,
resolutions on
I'm just
this.
saying that,
Yeah.
why
Well,
would
what
I
if-
wanna apply for something that I have to pay 500 heads up and not guarantee that I'm getting the position?
Yeah.
For sure. And I also, one of the things I talked to Alice about is that I think we need to see resolutions as a starting place instead of a finishing place, because there's not enough follow-up. We need to have some sort of process to follow up on these resolutions we spend so much sweat equity doing.
Yeah.
And they seem to just be sent to the elected officials. We don't even get responses. So it starts to take the wind out of people's sails for even doing resolutions if we don't have some sort of process. So I want to let you guys know I'm working on that as well. And hopefully we'll have something to tell you on that in September, but yeah, I'm hoping to make these a little bit more meaty. All right, so we're gonna keep that one. So we've got the rec space, we've got that one, we've got the elevators at Broad and 81 New as staying in. PS 150, we know we're doing this meeting. We're now gonna take that one head on in person. So we can take that off of a district need, because that's just got to the point where this is just gonna fall on deaf ears in this format.
Yeah, great.
So we have some room to introduce a couple new things if you guys have some things to bring to us. Let me know, like, do you think that? Is there something else you can think of? Or we can listen, we have to get it down to, in the end, we get it down to how many? She said, vote for your top 3. Each member selects their 3 highest priority ideas. We can send more than 3, but we're gonna be asked to vote on our top 3. So we can be super focused here. We have this opportunity to say, we have 4 asks. And it could put more emphasis on these and possibly increase the possibility of getting them done. But tell me if there's something else that you guys are seeing on the ground.
Are we meeting in August?
I don't think so.
Okay, so in September, we'll probably prioritize and vote.
So if you can bring new things in September too. It's just that we have to, in that meeting, we have to cover all that ground. So this is by no means the last time you could bring something. Just be clear that it has to be pretty well developed when you bring it in September. You know, you've got to have the data together, like have it ready to be written, in other words.
Can we revisit this, 5 World Trade Center? Like, the agency doesn't support it, but is it because it's not the property? Or
Yeah,
they-
it's private property.
Right, and so is there, maybe it's not.
Well, that's the new language is, the new language that Stacy and Elise, they're gonna take, they're gonna go around and they're gonna look, and Morton's gonna look, and we're gonna develop the language about Imagination Playground. We're gonna get specific about places that could include 5 World Trade and 250 Water and 100 Gold. But what we're gonna say to them is, you have to do whatever's necessary, public-private partnerships to make this happen. Because that way, they can't say it's not our property. It is a public-private partnership, 5 World Trade. So we're just gonna come at it from a different angle now, but it is gonna be the same thing, Desi.
Okay.
We're just not gonna give them the opportunity to give us that response again.
Yeah.
I thought you wanted us to focus just on Imagination Playground.
You guys can do that.
Yeah.
Yes. But that item is gonna have more to it
I see.
than that. I think we want to include, I'm gonna call upon you, Morton, to also talk about Pier 2042. If you can bring like what you like about it, where else you can envision that happening. Is there something on the waterfront that hasn't been done yet over there? Like, is there a spot you guys can see where there could be a possibility of creating another park area that's not being used properly? I mean, I'm just not over there, so I have to rely on you guys, but one of the places I'm kind of amazed at the amount of space for, a lot of wasted space is that Pier 11, where you catch boats places. There's just like so much concrete. And even on crowded weekends, I think
You're
that
talking
they
about
could,
Pier 11, where the helicopter port is, where the ferry terminal is?
Yeah, it's a ferry
Yeah.
terminal, the helicopter port, the dog walk, the restaurant. I mean, it's a high
if
traffic
it's in a
area.
bad spot, it's in too bad of a spot. Maybe so. I was just thinking, it's on the water, there's so much cement, could part of it be developed into a park? Or no, maybe it's too much.
I think we're gonna have strength from being the most specific, and so I think we do like just the Imagination Playground in one and then other areas, and I don't know where those are, but
Okay.
I think those are all good options.
Well, the other areas are gonna be indoor space, which we actually do really need.
I agree.
So if you guys are fine with that, I was just thinking maybe one more specific outdoor space in addition to Imagination. Is Imagination big?
No, it's not that.
No,
It's not
No.
that big, but it's as big as some other like pocket parks. You can go up to the Lower East Side, like, what's the place? On Clinton Street, Cherry Clinton, there's a little park there. That's a really nice park, has basketball courts, has playground and so forth. And it's tucked in there and yeah, and it's a nice park. It's not, you don't tell people to go there and imagine you have a playground, so,
I think if we were gonna couple it with anything and Morton and at least maybe you can chime in, but that little playground on Water and Fulton, I think would be good to couple that with, if we were gonna couple it with anything. They're both
Well,
run
the
by
wa-
the New York.
Yeah, the water and Fulton one, that's a park that serves a purpose. It gets a lot of use with small children, toddlers.
It does, it doesn't have any trees though.
I'm sorry,
I
what
think
did you
that's-
say?
It doesn't have a lot of trees, or shade in general, which I think deters a lot of people. I'm just saying, I don't think that necessarily needs to be redone, but I think if we were gonna couple it with another area, that would make sense because it's 2 blocks away.
Okay.
And also.
I mean-
Like to do tailoring.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah,
tree.
and just say
Yeah.
shade is needed at this.
It could just be a structure. I mean,
Okay.
there's no shade and the buildings, the way the buildings are situated,
Overhang.
they don't, yeah, an overhang. But I just think to Alice's point, like the more specific we can be both in the ask and the location, the more
Right.
likely it is that it'll get approved.
I agree.
Yeah.
So maybe between now and September, if any other specific outdoor ones come to mind, great. If it doesn't, let's focus on those two and get them done. And then we can also talk about in that same thing, say that, indoor space is also needed and that should be considered at locations like 250 Water and 100 Old upcoming developments. This should be part of that discussion. And that EDC needs to be incorporating.
Yeah.
This with any further development and just make it really strong.
I love,
So,
I think that is as its own.
I was just thinking, do we know what's happening with that tin building that closed, all those?
It's the balloon museum.
Oh, it is?
They're putting in a balloon museum. I don't think it's open
Oh,
yet.
that's what the plan is.
Yeah, it's like the second location outside of Europe.
Hot air balloon?
No, I don't know if you ever went at Pier, I think it's Pier 26. Where all the trash trucks are, they had a pop-up exhibit there. And it's, it's a bunch of inflatable balloons, all different shapes and rooms and a pool full of balloons. And I took my kids to the pop-up one and it was like, there's really cool. Yeah, but that's my understanding is that's what's
Just
going on.
very, you need that space.
You're
That
right.
would be
That's
fantastic.
exactly what's happening. There was a talk at one point of advocating for an indoor recreational facility just north of the Tin Building. There's apparently something there. There's a pier. It's near where some of the tall ships docked. And there was talk about taking that area and trying to build some indoor recreational facility. I think that nothing ever happened with it. But it's an area which is underutilized.
well, then we should take a look at that.
You know what actually could make sense is Complete Playground is at 30 Broad Street.
Complete?
Sorry, Complete Playground. It's that one that's for, Complete Playground. It was by the guy who started Complete Body, and it's a completely indoor playground. It took over the New York Health and Fitness Club.
Oh.
No, I've only heard rumors, but it would be worth exploring that it's massive inside, like 2 or 3 floors, like indoor playground, and they have like basketball courts and soccer fields in the bottom. I have heard rumors that 30 Broad Street is being turned into condominiums, and so they're trying to kick out Complete Playgrounds, but it's a massive space. And so maybe that's the kind of place that we bring.
Yes.
It's not closed yet. That's the problem. I've only heard rumors that they're trying to kick them out because they're taking it over. But like, if you can get in on the beginning of that, that's where the checklist comes in.
Yes.
You're gonna convert this, take this giant space that used to be a gym and a basketball court, and let's turn it into a gym and a basketball court for kids. Right? Yeah.
For sure, 30 Broad,
30 Broad.
and it's converting into condos.
That's what I've heard.
Okay, let's look into it.
Yeah.
All right, great. We have some really specific things. So I think we
Walls
should
and
stop
high end.
with this and just say, these are our things.
Right.
And
I have one idea,
Mhm.
and I don't know if it's right on this, and I don't mean to extend our meeting based on training. But 2K is something that's being rolled out by the city,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people would be interested. They pay an average of like $25,000 a year for childcare.
Yeah.
The mayor, my understanding is the mayor's office is responsible for where those seats are going. And so we'd have to tailor it of like, is this an expense for the actual seats or is it capital funding for the places to put the 2K centers? But there is definitely a growing 2K population in this area. And so maybe it's like we put this in as like our 6th item that we're all kind of in on, but the real ask is a resolution to the mayor's office. Since
Yes.
makes the decision.
I think the resolution would probably be the way to go on that.
Yeah, and I didn't know if it's like, the 3-pronged approach, the more we hit it, the better. And I don't know if we need capital expenditures, but that was another idea I had.
Yeah.
Because right now the seats are not anywhere close to here, and a lot of people were very excited about it.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
takes a lot, like in terms of people to adapt their spaces to be able to do the 2K, because we're looking into some things right now. Yeah. So
So
for
it's capital
2K,
expenditure.
yeah, so,
We have
and that's
to
what
do
you
that
need to
with-
renovate, you need
Yeah.
a renovation that would be.
Cause it needs like a bathroom in every classroom, and they need to be certain sizes, and, yeah.
Although I have to say, with the 3K, we ended up with more seats than we could fill.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of, because the city gets providers to run these.
Yeah.
And the providers were highly motivated to open these centers. Apparently, they're very well funded.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And I think that is, listen, if you pay people,
Yeah.
they will come. And I think, that could be part of the resolution too.
Yeah.
But let's try a resolution because I think we're gonna need it faster than next March.
I agree.
So let's do that and let this be really strong.
Yeah, 4 or 5
And-
good ones.
And then but I definitely want to put that resolution on for September. Let's do it.
Yeah, because I think that is something that people in this neighborhood, especially as you noted, there's a lot of strollers lately.
Yeah.
And those kids will turn too quickly.
There's a lot of babies.
There's a lot of babies.
So, okay, I think we've got it. Everybody good with what they're doing and what we need for September?
Yeah.
Any other questions, anyone? Okay. All right, thank you. Great rest of the summer.
Really good job there.
Guys.
Yeah.